And hello, Jets fans, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on Rich Sports Talk today. We're going to mix it up a little bit on Fridays. Usually, just talk about the previews. We can talk about that a little bit if you guys would like me to in the chat. I want to mix it up a little bit today and talk about something that's happened throughout the NFL this week. Because again, at this point in the season, Jets just looking to basically play out the stretch. Now, of course, the big thing for me is Zach Wilson. I want to see him complete over 60% this weekend, be efficient against this very good Dolphins pass rush. I don't think that's too much to ask. But you want to see improvement from Zach Wilson. You want to see the accuracy get better over these last 4 games. You want to see the offense run cohesively. But again, at this point, the Jets kind of just playing out the stretch. And if you want me to go into more of a preview, let me know in the chat. For those of you new, just join the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button in the corner. But again, if you want to talk a little bit about the preview, put that in the chat. If you have questions, put that in the chat. But I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, a little bit different, because I think it's prevalent to the Jets. And man, the New York Jets dodged a bullet by not hiring Urban Meyer. I mean, it is just crazy what has happened in Jacksonville. Of course, Urban Meyer fired earlier this week after countless different things happening in that organization. John from Atlanta, how's it going? Good to see you today. But it was just absolutely crazy, everything that happened with Urban Meyer. And I was thinking to myself that the Jets dodged a bullet because, again, Urban Meyer, the only team he wanted to coach was the one with Trevor Lawrence. Now, again, even if the Jets somehow got the first pick, I'm not sure if Urban would have been the number one pick. But I was thinking today, like, could you imagine if Urban Meyer was the head coach of the Jets? And there's this narrative around the New York Jets that they are a dysfunctional franchise. And yes, for their history, they have been a dysfunctional franchise. But right now, I don't think that they're a dysfunctional franchise. They're just a team that's in a rebuild and a team that's torn everything down. And I just looked at the Jaguars and I'm like, my God, that is an absolute mess and an absolute tire fire there. And the one thing that really annoyed me, and I said this for the last year, was this narrative. And I get why the narrative was out there because of the cynical state of the New York media, because of the Jets' popularity, because they know that they would get clicks. But I hated this lazy narrative in the media, which was the following: when the Jets were looking like they were going to get the number one pick, which is the Jets are going to ruin Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence should stay in school for another year. He shouldn't go to the Jets. They will ruin his career. They're a mess of an organization. And the thing that always annoyed me by that was if you're going to be consistent and have a take, be consistent with that take. Because it was always amazing to me that the second the Jacksonville Jaguars, because no one cares about the Jaguars, got the number one pick, and because they're not the most popular team in the NFL, crickets. I didn't hear anyone saying, hey, Trevor Lawrence should still hold out. It's Jacksonville. They're a terrible team. I didn't hear any of that. And I remember saying at the time, if I'm Trevor Lawrence, wouldn't I want to go back to school? And aren't the Jaguars a worse situation? Now, granted, there's a lot less pressure in Jacksonville, and that is very helpful. But I was just looking at it saying everyone's just saying the Jets are going to automatically ruin Trevor Lawrence. The Jets are going to destroy Trevor Lawrence, that they're the worst situation to walk into. The last 2 off seasons, the Jets have made an effort to improve the offense. And I just looked at this situation and I was just getting super frustrated with all the comments and all the negativity around the Jets, and basically that Trevor Lawrence shouldn't go to the Jets and shouldn't refuse to play for them. And then he goes to the Jaguars and no one says a thing. Can we just talk about how Trevor Lawrence looks absolutely lost right now? Can we just absolutely understand like how bad it is? And look, we killed the Jets organization. We killed the Johnson organization, but Shao Kahn and the Jaguars, I mean, we're talking about an organization that has been flirting with the idea of moving to London. I mean, it is just crazy. And it just bothered me because everyone was just saying, oh, Urban Meyer is a home run hire. And I remember saying at the time, I think this is going to end badly because Urban Meyer to me is going to be one of the greatest college coaches. And basically, he even kind of was hinting at saying when he was asked, would you go back to college? And he said, no, like, I will never go back to college. And who knows what that will happen now. I mean, who knows, in like a month or two, we'll hear that he's coming back to college. But to me, it was basically the way he was presenting himself was like this was the opportunity that he never had. He wanted to try the NFL. And it kind of sounded like the guy that was retired that picks up golf or picks up one of these hobbies. And it's like, yeah, they'll do it, but are they really committed to doing it? And then you heard the leaks about the strength and conditioning coach, about Tim Tebow, about the vaccinations. And that was just before they even played a regular season game. And then I remember saying at the time when he refused to come back on the plane and then the lap dance video in Ohio. And I remember saying at the time, it's not if he gets fired, it's when at this point. And I really was starting to believe that at that time, this was going to be a one season kind of deal because they were going to look at this and go, okay, this just isn't working. Trevor Lawrence isn't getting better. We can't squander this opportunity. And it was just a situation where for Urban Meyer, it just felt like it was never going to work. And it just felt like it was just a absolute mess from beginning to end. And now you're looking at a situation where you've basically wasted a year of Trevor Lawrence's future, especially when he's on his rookie deal. They're going to be looking for a new head coach. If I was them, I'd give Jim Caldwell a call. I was saying this last year when the Jets were in the coaching staff is why in God's name was Jim Caldwell not getting a call? But to me, Jim Caldwell should be a coach in the NFL. He's got a lot of clout. He's well respected. And of course, he did take the Lions on their most successful 4-year run and got them to the playoffs and basically had one losing record in Detroit. I will never get why they got rid of him. But if I was Jacksonville, that's who I would be going after. And again, this is a situation too. Like, did the Jets give Zach Wilson the perfect situation to walk into? No. But you can tell that this team is actively trying to put the pieces around him. They're trying to make it work. They're trying to give him as many weapons. And I do think you're going to see that continue this offseason. We're in Jacksonville. I mean, they had the 23rd pick in the draft, and they took a running back when they had a running back that was top 5 in yards last year as an undrafted free agent. So the Jaguars were a complete mess. Urban Meyer is out. And I was just thinking, like, could you imagine if somehow Urban Meyer was the coach of the Jets? Like, if you wanted to say that narrative that the Jets were dysfunctional, the Jets were a hot mess, and the Jets were a dumpster fire, then yeah, if that was the case, you couldn't defend it. But I can say at least this, like, people are going to kill the Jets and saying the Jets are a dysfunctional mess right now. And I'm like, for the first time in a decade, they have order and they have a plan. Like, they have a general manager who hired the head coach. I know that's a revolutionary concept for people, but that's the way it's supposed to work. And that's one of the reasons why, to me, this is really year one of this rebuild, because for the last decade, it's been the coach and the GM with different levels of power, with different levels of responsibility, with different timelines within the organization. Not anymore. Now that everyone is on the same timeline again, that doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work, but at least this is the best option for this team going forward. And I was saying this week too, which is, and I was thinking about doing a live stream video. Let me know if you want me to do this, but I was going to talk about how the New York Giants are about to become the Jets 2.0, about how the New York Giants are about to, in my opinion, make the same mistake that the Jets did, and why the Jets have had a decade of futility, which is they fell in love with a head coach instead of falling like with a head coach. When you are the owner of a franchise, like your coach, you want to be likable with your coach, you want to have a good relationship, obviously, but don't fall in love with the coach, because love makes us do stupid things. Love blinds us. We've all heard the cliches. And you look what happened to the Jets. They fell in love with Rex Ryan. Of course, he was the boisterous head coach. He got the Jets to back-to-back AFC championship games. And Woody Johnson absolutely adored him. But what was the problem? They moved on from Mike Tannenbaum and basically said, okay, we need a GM that wants to work with Rex Ryan. And a lot of the best candidates said, no, we want to pick our own coach, which is understandable. I mean, if you are being hired as a general manager in the NFL, you want to have a structure and you want to have a head coach that agrees with your ideologies, that agrees with your philosophy, and more importantly, agrees with the type of players that you're looking to draft. The Jets didn't do that. They hired John Idzik, and we all know the rest of the story, and it's been a disaster. And really, this was the first year where they said the GM, a football guy, and Joe Douglas, they let him hire the head coach. And I think that that was the right decision. It doesn't help too with John Mara. You would think that the Giants would learn from the Jets' mistakes because the Jets, to be fair, have gone first in making a lot of these mistakes. And what was the other big mistake? Publicly going above and beyond defending your head coach. Of course, if when things aren't going right, defend your head coach. That's one thing, but don't go the extra mile because it's only going to hurt you. Tell me if this sounds familiar last year from Christopher Johnson when he was supporting Adam Gase and said, basically, Adam Gase is coaching football where it's going. My God, did we crucify him for saying that? Well, this past week, the Giants didn't learn that lesson either and basically decided, hey, Joe Judge, like we believe, and they didn't say this directly, but it's come out in the news, and obviously they had to say this to someone, but they believe that he is their version of Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells and Joe Judge. Does Joe Judge have a winning record? Like, what Kool-Aid are they drinking with the Giants? And it was just a comment that already has been getting ripped, already has been a problem. And now you're seeing it too with Joe Judge basically now knowing he's coming back. He's been defiant with the media. He's made it clear that he doesn't care what the media has to think. And again, in New York, it's a delicate relationship where you don't have to like the media, but you at least have to be able to get along with the media. And I said this for the Giants too. I do believe that they're in a big problem because you look right now, they need someone to come in as a general manager and potentially draft a franchise quarterback. Well, if you're a prospective general manager, and I get that there's only so many general manager jobs in the NFL, but again, if you're a really good general manager prospect and the Giants approach you and you don't have the opportunity to pick your head coach and you don't think you're going to match with Joe Judge, that's going to eliminate the candidates. That's going to limit the candidate pool. And again, you're at a critical crossroads because you need to pick a franchise quarterback. What if you and Joe Judge don't agree on the franchise quarterback? What if Joe Judge wants a more traditional passer, but you as your general manager value a different player higher? That's going to create a lot of turmoil within that building. So again, like I love this narrative where and I get it because it's been historically accurate. It's been beaten to death, which is, the Jets are a mess. The Jets are an organization that's in chaos. And really right now, they're just a bad football team with a lot of young players. I mean, I don't hear things like the stories coming out of Jacksonville. You don't hear the things with the Giants. You don't hear stories like that. And I have to give the Jets credit. A lot of that also goes back to they're a more cohesive unit. Under Adam Gase, how many stories did we hear come out about Gase? How many stories do we hear about the coaching staff? You don't hear that anymore with this Jets coaching staff. You don't hear that leaking out. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button in the bottom corner. Chat is open. If you want me to talk more about the preview for the Dolphins game, I mean, I thought that you guys would care more about like the Urban Meyer effect on the Jets today. But would love to hear what you guys have to say in the chat. Your thoughts about the Urban Meyer firing, your thoughts on the Jets right now, your thoughts on the Dolphins game coming up. Would love to hear from you guys and answer your questions. Again, chat is always open. Katie, I can understand the Johnsons aren't great owners by any stretch, but Shad Khan is arguably the worst owner in sports. I'll say this about Shad Khan is he might be one of the worst owners, but he's an owner that at least tries. And you can tell people like working for him. I mean, he's going to spend money. I think that there's a lot worse owners out there. I mean, the Wilpons to me were the worst owners, and they're gone now, but they were just an absolute mess in New York. The Jets team, even though still bad, just feels more tame. Okay, I wasn't sure if you were saying more same, KD, more tame. Not so much craziness has leaked this season. Agree, and I think a lot of that has to do with the coaching staff because what happened in Jacksonville? You had coaches that basically understood that they didn't want their career to be tied to Urban Meyer because it's very different in college than the NFL. And Urban did not understand that. And look at the personalities that failed in the NFL: Nick Saban, Bobby Petrino, and Urban Meyer. What did a lot of those guys, what did they have in common? They were dictators. They were guys where they were God. It was their program, and you had to agree with them. That's not how it works in the NFL. In the NFL, you have guys that are getting paid. You have guys that get making certain money. You have guys that, the playing field's even, more even. So you need guys that can out scheme, that can put players in a good position to win. Where in college, when you are a great coach of one of the top 10 programs, in 11 of the 12 regular season games, you should have the most talent on the field. And that's what Urban Meyer did at Ohio State. And you look at the personalities, it's different in college because what is the biggest difference between college and pro staffs? Now, this isn't a perfect example, but I do think that this takes a lot of credit. Like in college, most of those coaching staffs are full with young coaches. It's one of their first big jobs. A lot of them are graduate assistants. Some of them are players that are becoming coaches or trying to become coaches. So what happens? They're in a system where they are going to be referred by Urban Meyer. Like eventually they want to go out and be offensive coordinators. They want to be quarterbacks coaches. They want to maybe even be head coaches. So when you are on those staffs, you need to basically appease the head coach because they hold all the power. Because whatever job you apply for, their first call is going to be to Urban Meyer and basically saying, what do you think of him as a coach? And if Urban Meyer says you're great, you're going to get the job. If Urban Meyer's like, he's good. I mean, there's certain things we want him to do better. That's going to kill you. And because of that, that's why I think like in college, these coaches have more power because they're dealing with younger kids. They're dealing with players that, are trying to get to the NFL. They're dealing with young coaches trying to grow their career. It's like the perfect storm. In the NFL, a lot of these coaches, they've been on other rosters. They've grinded. They've worked their way up. And even some of these younger coaches, a lot of them already worked in college. They've cut their teeth in college. They're trying to grow their career. And again, one of the reasons I think you kept seeing all the leaks out of Jacksonville is because all these young coaches didn't want to be tied to Urban Meyer and they didn't want to be tied to this mess and this chaos. And they're saying, look, the ship's going down. We're getting in a lifeboat. We're not sinking with Urban Meyer. And again, Mina Kimes had a great quote the other day, and I'm going to paraphrase it, which is basically saying, this is who Urban Meyer is. We just found out who Urban Meyer is. Because when you've heard the horror stories about him in Florida and him in Ohio State, what are the two biggest caveats about those? Those are two smaller towns who are obsessed with the football program. And basically, Urban Meyer could be God because he basically was God. He was the leader of those communities. He was the biggest star in those states. But that's not the NFL. The NFL, there are 31 other really good coaches and some of the best coaches in the sport. You're going to have pretty much even talent. And if you're taking over a bad team, you're going to have less talent than the better teams. So you need to be able to do that. And if you come in with a God complex and you come in like you know everything and that you should know everything and your team continues to lose like the Jaguars did, it's going to rub the wrong way. And once again, Jets dodged a bullet. KD, yeah, I'm not nearly as mad as I was last season with the team being eliminated so early. I understand because of how young we are. And like you said, everyone's on the same page, head coach, quarterback, etc. And look, the Jets have 3 wins. I know that's not pretty, and I know it stinks and you want the Jets to win. Same time last year, you know how many wins the Jets had? 0. And that's the other thing too, which I want people to understand this. Like the Jets have the most players on IR in terms of their cap. And this was a team that last year realistically should have won 0 games. So the fact that they are playing better and the fact that they have a couple more wins and against good teams, again, I do think they could beat Jacksonville, though who knows if Jacksonville now beats the Jets because they're just trying. Like I saw in the press conference, like they were asking the interim head coach, you think you're going to have more wins this year than Urban Meyer? And I think the Jaguars are just going to play well these last 4 games just to stick it to Urban. But again, I do think the Jets could have a shot this week. Again, both Michael Carters are back, which is huge. But again, it's going to come down to Zach Wilson's accuracy. And for the first time, like I've said, the Jets, they all feel like they're on the same page and they're all starting at the same time with the quarterback, with the coach, and with the general manager. Whereas it's not like the general manager's worried about making the playoffs, where they have a rookie quarterback and a young head coach, or they have a head coach in the third year or second year that feels like he could get fired, but the GM wants to keep rebuilding. So again, there's a lot that goes into this, but I do think the Jets are finally on the same page. I think the Jets are finally going at least in somewhat of a right direction. And again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our content. And for those of you in the chat, if you're looking to see what the Jets did, I think the Jets are going to do in the draft. I have our latest mock draft. It's our third quarter mock draft. It's on the channel. You can go check that out right now. It's our mock draft 2.0. 3-round mock drafts. I do a full 7-round once we get into the thick of draft season, but I do that after free agency, so I have a better idea of what holes the Jets need to fill. But our 3-round mock draft is now available. Who do I have the Jets taking the first 2 rounds? Who do I have them taking on day 2 of the draft? A lot of interesting picks and some prospects you may not have heard of or might not be familiar with, but it's a fun chance to get familiar with too. And I do think the terms of the players I drafted, you might be a little surprised about what direction I went, but when you really listen to my thoughts on the process, and again, I do these mock drafts based on what I believe the Jets will do. I study a lot of general managers and their tendencies and organizations' tendencies in the draft, and I take that into account as opposed to just randomly picking the one player or players who I think the Jets should select. So again, guys, that is on the channel. We will be having more mock drafts. If you're a big mock draft fan, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss any of that draft content. And again, guys, the chat is open if you would like to drop a question. Would love to hear from you guys, your thoughts on the game this weekend, your thoughts on Urban Meyer, your thoughts on the current state of the Jets, Zach Wilson. I mean, there's so much to talk about. And again, a reminder, if you're new to the channel as well, we do recaps after every Jets game. So this Monday, 10 a.m., we will be doing a recap following the Jets game on Sunday against the Dolphins, breaking down Zach Wilson's performance, the coaching staff, and again, hopefully talking the positive about the return of not just one, but both Michael Carters. So another question in the chat. As far as Joe Douglas' tendencies, what do you notice? He seems very chaotic. I don't ever actually think I don't think he's that chaotic. Again, I look at the values that he's put in the first 2 drafts, and it's been offensive line plays been big. I mean, you've seen 2 first-round picks on offensive linemen. So I do think, again, he sees the value in offensive line, and he realizes you're not going to get great offensive linemen in the NFL now in free agency. And even if you do, I don't think the Jets are really in play. So to get good offensive linemen, you have to draft them and draft them early. I think he feels that he can find certain positions later in the draft than early game-changing wide receivers. He feels comfortable in the second round going after them. But again, we've seen this. And again, a lot of it's been to draft for the offense. But to me, Douglas is telling you he feels he can find certain positions on day 3 of the draft or later in the draft. And what I mean by that is secondary, especially. You saw it a lot last year, drafting guys in the day 3 of the draft. You saw in the first year drafting like Bryce Hall on day 3. And it makes sense because there are a lot of corners in college football and a lot of safeties. And again, because so many guys need playmakers, so many guys need offensive line, so many quarterbacks are needed, they push some of these secondary players down the board, which means you can get better value. And again, Joe Douglas to me looks for guys that might have been injured in college, but if they get the clean bill of health, he's not afraid to take a risk on them. I mean, Bryce Hall, again, as long as the talent's there. I mean, Bryce Hall should have probably been a second-round pick, maybe third-round pick, but he fell to the 5th round because of an injury, and the Jets got the clean bill of health, and they were able to draft him. I mean, even this last draft, I mean, you saw them be a little bit creative where, I mean, they drafted the 2 safeties, but basically told everyone that they're going to play linebacker. So, and again, I do think he's very active in the undrafted free agency pool. I mean, Bryce Huff was one of those guys in the undrafted free agency pool. So again, like when I look at the tendencies for Douglas, and what him and Robert Saleh have said and how their philosophy is, I do think you're going to see them in the draft focus on the offensive defensive lines. And again, you could say that those are probably strengths of the Jets right now, which I know isn't saying much, but that's where they believe that they should be spending the high end picks. So don't be surprised they go offensive line the first 2 rounds. Don't be surprised if they go defensive line the first 2 rounds. And I know the secondary has been an issue. I feel they're going to address that in free agency, but I do think they could look for players like linebackers, other members of the secondary like safeties. I think that they feel they could find those guys on day 3. I think they could find maybe even another running back on day 3 like they did with Michael Carter. So those are the tendencies that I look at for Douglas. And again, that's one of the reasons why when you look at my mock draft and the players that I've picked, especially in the first 2 rounds, I believe it makes a lot of sense. So again, if you haven't seen that video, it's now up. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about that video. Would love to hear your opinions. Do you agree with the picks that I went with? Do you feel like I could have gone different directions? Again, I feel pretty good about the draft. I feel like I went the right direction with a lot of these guys. Just look at the comments right now. Love your first 2 selections, but don't love the later ones. I agree with your first round pick, but that's it. So lots of creative opinions in the draft. And again, it's going to be interesting to see what the Jets do because I could also see them very well trading one of those picks, either the first or second one, to get more draft capital, trade down a little bit because there's only a couple real blue chip prospects. Again, I think there are no brainers for the Jets, but once we get past those 3, it's going to impact the draft. And again, the quarterback run's important too. I keep seeing all these mock drafts. The Texans don't take a quarterback. I don't see how they can go into next year without a quarterback or without drafting a quarterback. It doesn't make sense to me. And I just don't really see how they're going to be able to do it without a quarterback. I mean, you need a quarterback in this league. So, I don't know how. And also, I think there's going to be teams that trade up. I mean, one team I'd keep an eye on is the Giants because they're going to need probably a quarterback. I know that they've hinted Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback next year, but again, we're not sure about his neck injury. We're not sure how bad that is. And again, if they go through their evaluation, and they need to do what the Jets did with Sam Darnold last year, they need to go through a thorough evaluation. If they feel that there's a guy in the draft that's better than the guy they have now, then they need to go get them. And if they feel that Daniel Jones is better than any prospect in this draft, then fine, keep him for another year. But that's a team I would also keep an eye on in terms of a team that could go up and get a quarterback. So just checking out the chat. If you guys, once again, you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts on the Jets, the draft, free agency, the upcoming game against the Dolphins. And again, I didn't go super thorough on the preview for the Dolphins today, but again, I'm mixing it up, especially at this point in the season. I think it's more privy to talk about other factors around the Jets and around the NFL. And plus, I'm going to do in-depth analysis of the game on Sunday. But I mean, basically, the Jets pass rush has to get home. They have to make Tua uncomfortable. Dolphins are playing better. But again, Jalen Waddle now on the COVID list. And it's actually kind of interesting, too, because people like to bash Saleh. But I will say this, Saleh was very smart this week, which is helping the Jets, which is what many people don't know is I mean, we've all seen the COVID outbreak in the NFL, but the Jets have done a very good job containing it because Saleh said that he noticed that there were some guys with like flu-like symptoms early in the week, and immediately before the NFL did the recommended guidelines of virtual meetings, social distancing again, and basically those guidelines to spreading people out. And I mean, Saleh jumped right on that. And right now it looks like the Jets are in pretty good shape with COVID. They have a couple of cases, but compared to teams like the Browns and Washington, who, I mean, they're already talking about their 3rd or 4th quarterback. I think that you have to give Sal a lot of credit for it. And who knows, maybe the Jets will sneak a win or two just because so many teams are decimated. I mean, the Dolphins aren't, Waddle's out for this game with COVID, but I mean, who knows? I mean, we could look up on Saturday and Tua's out with COVID, or, the couple more players on the Dolphins are out with COVID. So I have to give Sal credit because, no, it's been easy to bash him on some of the decisions this year, but having that foresight and really the great coaches in the NFL have that ability to look very far ahead and see things coming. And I do think Salah did see basically COVID potentially breaking out on the Jets and made the decision to go to the Zoom meetings and do the social distancing and keep everyone apart. And it looks like it's worked out pretty well for the Jets, where we're seeing teams like the Browns, Washington just getting absolutely decimated with the COVID virus right now. And again, it'll be interesting to see. And who knows, maybe the Jets might sneak an extra win here because they'll play a team that's super short hand. I mean, it happened last year with the Browns. I mean, I know everyone talked about the Rams game, but again, the Jets were still kind of in play for the number one pick. But again, they played. Remember last year it was the Cleveland game where they were playing their fifth and sixth string receivers. I mean, it reminded me of when the Jets went to Indianapolis with Sam Darnold. They were playing all the practice squad receivers. You're like, this is not going to end well. So again, I have to give Sal a lot of credit for that, having the foresight to separate the players. And again, like you see the way the virus is spread, it's really hitting teams in the North harder than teams in the South for obvious reasons. And again, I do think I gotta give Sal credit for keeping the team, mostly apart. And again, it's not going to be perfect. Some Jets have already caught COVID, but compared to some other teams, I do think that they have been able to limit the outbreak as much as possible. So, of course, COVID's still not going away, still having a big impact on the NFL. So, again, I do think the Jets have handled that incredibly well, and I do have to give credit where credit is due. Once again, guys, any questions, put them in the chat. I was saying earlier, if you guys are interested in my latest mock draft, that's now up on the channel, our 2.0 mock draft. Again, 3-round mock draft. And guys, where else are you going to get this in-depth mock drafts? I mean, come on. I mean, I'm going the extra mile. I'm doing the full 2-day mock drafts. Eventually, we're going to do 7 days when, the roster picture becomes clear after free agency. But I'm not just giving you first-round picks. I'm giving you the first 5 picks for the Jets, who I think they're going to go after and who I think that they will use to improve this roster. I promise you're not going to miss them. Some new big changes, maybe a potential surprise first pick. But when I explain, I think you'll understand. My Jets' second first-round pick, a player who probably a lot of you might not have heard of, but I do think is someone to keep an eye on. And again, the reason I have the Jets selected him is a very important reason, and I do think it's one that can't be understated. And again, do the Jets get playmakers to help Zach Wilson? Do they just go defense? You're going to have to find out. Make sure you click that and watch. But again, guys, talked about Urban Meyer, how the Jets dodged a bullet not getting him. Talked a little bit about the Dolphin game. Talking a little about the league and, of course, the draft. And again, guys, if you have any other questions, I just see Emma Walters in the chat now. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. We'd love to answer them about the Jets, about the draft. Especially I love talking about the draft. So if you have any questions, let me know. Would love to hear from you guys, how you're doing on this Friday. And again, for those who are new to the channel, again, we do previews and breakdowns every week. This Monday at 10 a.m., we'll be breaking down the Jets Dolphins game on Sunday, our reaction, Zach Wilson's performance, Robert Saleh's job coaching, and again, talking about how the Jets played in that game. And look, it hasn't been pretty, but it's almost like a good therapy session. I mean, you need something positive to look forward to on Mondays with the Jets. And look, you're hoping you're going to get a win on Monday, and I do too. But again, it's also nice to just have something to take your mind off it, and some good therapy session on Monday morning, Jet fans. I know we've needed it the last decade, so I'm there with you. So, just wanted to see, do you guys have any other questions in the chat today? If not, we might get out of here early. But again, want to answer questions if you have them. Seeing if we have any of the familiar faces in there. I see KD's in here as usual. I know usually we'll see like Solomon Jets in here. We'll get a couple of different Jet fans in here. So if you guys have any comments, would love to hear what you guys have to say. Any questions that you might have. So I'm just going to wait a second to see what you have to say. But again, like you look, the Jets underdogs this week going to Miami. And I don't think Robert Saleh is going to pull an Adam Gase and sit on the bench by himself in Miami. But look, Miami hasn't been great for the Jets. It just hasn't in the recent years. But you just hope that Zach Wilson can play efficient. My big thing for him is just if he can complete over 60%, I'll be happy. If he looks more confident, and to me, the Jets got to run the football. Michael Carter's back. They have to really be able to just control the clock, control the time possession. And it's not just to help the defense, not only to limit the time possession, but also helps the defense because this defense, you want them on the field as if you can avoid having them on the field, the better. Like if you can keep them, it's better to have that Jet defense on the field for 26 minutes a game than 34 minutes because more things can go wrong. But again, it'll be interesting to see how the Jets defense holds up against this Miami team. Tua is playing a lot better. But again, a big thing for the Jets is Jalen Waddle will not play. So that's huge for this secondary. A big playmaker, and obviously the biggest playmaker for Miami will be out in this game. But we also have to see, too, like if anyone else gets COVID before the game, too. That obviously will have a big impact on either team. So we'll have to see where that's going. Just checking quick to make sure there's no breaking Jet news that I've missed since the start of the chat. I mean, I've seen that last couple times, the last two times, like it seems like some Jet update, like in terms of injuries or in terms of updates on the injuries or COVID. Like I've missed them, so I'm just checking to make sure I'm not missing anything. So far so good. Doesn't seem like I missed anything. All right, guys. Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat, so I guess you guys are content for today. Thank you again for, as always, for joining us. I appreciate it. I know this has been a little bit odd, like the time was a little bit off today, and we went a little different direction. But again, guys, we'll be back Monday to talk about the Jets' performance. Don't want to miss that against the Dolphins. I'll see you then. Make sure you bring your questions for the chat. Love talking to you guys as always. But until next time, I'm Nolan Rich, and this is Rich Sports Talk. Thanks so much for joining us.